On today's video, we are going to talk about the basic photography equipment for beginners and what you need to get started. Before we even get into the list of photography gear for beginners, I want to make one thing clear. Gear does not compensate for skills. Gear doesn't make you a better photographer. It will make your job easier though. Learning the basic skills of photography is the most important step. You won't need newer and better gear until you learn how to use what you have, and in fact, you're so good at using it that your skills exceed the technical limitations of what you have. I firmly believe you should buy the minimum amount of gear you need to get started. This literally means a camera, a lens, and a memory card. Having a computer to process images would of course be handy, but that's almost like a second step. If you get a basic camera and a basic lens, you are ready to start learning. If you're starting your journey as a photographer and ready to buy your first camera, I suggest checking out the video I created for best cameras for beginners. As your skills advance and you start learning more and wanting to try new things, your need for equipment will change, and that's okay. But don't feel like you need to go out and buy everything on this list before you start taking photos. With that being said, the items on this list are what I consider essential basic gear. So let me start with the gear that I started with. I bought my first camera in December 2007. I remember because it was a few months after my first trip to Europe, and when I fell in love with photography is after I started traveling. I was actually a film student at the time. I was in university and I went on that trip and I brought my dad's little point and shoot. After having learned some basic concepts of camera operation and framing and light, I realized that I couldn't actually learn how to properly shoot on a point and shoot, and I needed something better. So my first camera was a Nikon D80. This is a camera that now would be completely obsolete. It is 15 years old. It was a crop sensor camera. It had horrible low light rendering, but it was a million times better than what I had because it was an SLR. A DSLR is a digital single lens reflex, which refers to the system the camera uses to operate. This means I could interchange lenses, shoot manual mode, and really start learning the principles of photography. I bought this camera on eBay with a kit that came with two zoom lenses. One was an 1855 for the crop sensor, and the other one was some sort of telephoto, like a 50-200, and it came with a prime lens, a nifty 50 or a 50mm lens. I literally didn't touch the 50mm lens for 2 whole years because I felt like it was boring and useless. And at one focal length, how much could I really do? Obviously, I laugh now because when I actually finally discovered that 50mm lens, the quality, the precision, the low f-stop, I never look back to my zooms. I actually still have that lens 15 years later. So my first camera was super basic, and the lenses were even more so. Low quality, terrible in low light, and with somewhat of a slow focusing system. But nonetheless, it took me about 3 years to actually need an upgrade. Once I really understood how lenses work and how to use them and what limitations my camera had, I was ready for an upgrade, and I upgraded to a D90, which was the next model up. Still a crop sensor camera, but with much better low light performance and a much faster focusing system. This upgrade felt like a million times better. This is the camera that I used through photography school in 2010, 2011, and for my first 2 years as a freelancer. I didn't upgrade to a full-frame camera until I went full-time freelancing in 2012. And somewhere along the way, I bought a tripod, a flash, some filters, straps, cases, hard drives, some studio lighting and modifiers for them, backdrops, backdrop stands, and upgraded my computer. So let me tell you about the photography gear that I have now. Fast forward to today, and although I still have way more equipment than I need, I managed to figure out exactly what is the equipment that I use and love. I still shoot Nikon, but I upgraded for my latest full-frame SLR to a mirrorless system, which meant I actually had to buy a few new lenses. So usually when I upgrade, I sell my old camera body, but this time I kept my D750 and all my lenses. and decided to buy a new set of lenses for the mirrorless. Although my old lenses fit on the new Z6 with the adapter, I wanted some native glass for the camera. Because I mostly shoot at 24mm, 35mm, or 50mm, those are the lenses that I bought to start with. I now also have a zoom lens to make it easier when traveling, and that's a 24-70. So I decided to keep the full two setups because I do a lot of travel and work on my own, and often I'm in remote places where I can't find a nearby shop or somebody that can borrow me a camera if something goes wrong. I always recommend for photographers that do this kind of work to have a backup body, but it took me 7 years in business as a freelancer to actually need double of everything. I work a lot with hotels and in travel, so I also have a Mavic Pro drone. I have a gimbal to do some video work, and because I do a lot of video, I have a pretty hefty MacBook Pro that has a really fast processor. I use Lightroom, I use Photoshop, and I use DaVinci Resolve for video editing. I have a bunch of 2TB and 5TB hard drives, extra batteries, and chargers, as well as card readers, and a Wacom tablet for editing. You can imagine that traveling with this much gear is exhausting, and I actually get into arguments with airline agents all the time because my hand luggage is way too heavy. It's like 20 kilos, and honestly, eventually they have no choice but to let me through because it's all electronics, but I'm telling you, it's an absolute headache. So anyway, the truth is that I can perform most of my work on my Z6 and my zoom lens, and pretty much whenever I go out to a shoot, I try to bring the least amount of equipment I possibly can. But I work as a professional, which means I need to have all the tools available for whenever I need them. So if you're just starting out, you should start small and know that you will grow as you need. Let's get started talking about cameras. As I said, I have a whole video dedicated to the best cameras for beginner photographers, which you definitely need to check out. But I just want to give you a gist of what to look for. When you buy your first camera, there's a lot to consider, and I know it can be quite overwhelming. The truth is that there isn't all that much difference between camera brands, as each one has their entry-level cameras, their mid-level cameras, and their pro range. If you're just starting out, going with a baseline camera is a great idea, although I know some people are wanting to go straight into a full sensor, and that's okay too. It comes down to budget, and if you think you'll be wanting to do photography professionally, or if you know you're going to be wanting to upgrade sooner or later, then you might as well go for that full sensor. If you're not planning on doing photography professionally, then a crop sensor will always be more than enough, and I promise you, you're not going to notice the difference. In terms of what brand to use, I recommend visiting a local camera store and trying all of them out. I ended up with Nikon by absolute chance, as the deal online was much better than the Canon one. And after shooting the same brand for 15 years, I am too used to the ergonomics, the settings, and the color rendering of Nikon. So I would never consider another brand. But that's not to say that Nikon is the best. So if you're just starting out, play with things, try things out, and see what you like. Although I know people who have switched, for me, I like what I have. I spend good money on lenses, and as long as I keep using Nikon, I know I can keep using them on SLR bodies. I said it before and I'll say it again. A camera is a camera. Pick what you like the most, what makes you feel the most comfortable, and what meets you at the level of where you're at, and stick to that for now. And just to know that mirrorless cameras are a great option to SLRs. They are getting better and better every release, and in my opinion, mirrorless is the future of photography. They also can provide you with amazing video functionality if that is something that you're interested in doing. So if you're gonna go for an entry-level camera, SLRs might be a little bit more affordable, but if you want to play with video and you can stretch your budget, a mirrorless might be best. I would recommend sticking to one of the more known camera brands, Nikon, Canon, Sony, or Fuji. Not only there is much more equipment available for these brands, but also there are more resources online for troubleshooting and problem solving. So in summary, check out the options available for each camera manufacturer, both SLR and mirrorless, and decide what feels best for you and your budget. There is no wrong choice here, trust me. Once you pick a camera that you like, you can move on to the next most important thing, which is lenses. They are divided into two main categories, zoom lenses and prime lenses. So what's the difference? A prime lens has only one focal length, while a zoom lens can travel from a range of focal lengths. Common starter zooms cover from wide length to telephoto, but drop in quality due to the number of different lengths it serves. So it's not going to be as good at 24, 50, and 120. It is important to keep in mind that you can find lenses in all kinds of budgets. Often, the more expensive lenses, the better the quality of the glass and the better build of the mechanics in it. I recommend to start off with a zoom just to determine what kind of focal length you like the best and to experiment in different types of photography. And once you narrow down your interest, you can invest in a nice prime lens that will give you better quality. So you can usually find on any kind of brand a nifty 50, which is what we call a basic 50mm prime lens. This lens is great for portraits and it can also serve as a mid-range lens. Although if you're in a crop sensor, it's going to be a little bit tight, more like a telephoto lens. So it gives you quite a lot of options to play with. And it usually comes at a nice and bright aperture, 1.8 or 2.8, which will help you play with a beautiful bokeh, blurry background, and that soft separation between the subject and the background that everybody loves. If you want to learn more about lenses, you should check out my video on lenses. I go into huge amount of detail because I'm a big nerd and I love talking about this stuff. So check that out. To recap, you want to start with two lenses. A zoom lens, which a common starter lens could be 28 to 70mm, and they often come with the camera as a kit lens, and a prime lens, either a 50mm or a 35. Next up, let's talk about camera bags and lens cases. This will fall under the category of accessories. Anyone who tells you one camera bag can fit all needs is lying to you. I have about 3 to 5 different bags and I like to use a different setup depending where in the world I'm shooting, how much gear I need to bring, and of course the weather. My most used bag is a Low Pro that fits all my equipment, and I also have a roller bag for back pain so I can carry all my equipment if I'm having a big shoot. And then of course I have a few small over-the-shoulder bags for on the go. My favorite though for short shoots or traveling is using a padded insert that I can fit into different bags. Check the description on this video for all my recommendations and direct links to Amazon. Up next, let's talk hard drives. Look, I'm a backup freak. All my work is always backed up and is often backed up twice. I use hard drives as my main storage for images with a second drive as a backup. I usually only keep on my laptop whatever I am currently working on, and I put everything else on drives. I've tried every single hard drive you can think of, so I really know what I'm talking about. I had so many hard drives fail, and I know which ones work the best. To make it easy, I recommend getting 2 hard drives. One desktop drive, so something that can sit at home and doesn't move, and a portable drive. The desktop drive is for archival and storage of all your things. It stays in one place and it has a lot of storage space. And the portable drive is for travel and just life in general, life on the go. You want something that's sturdy and hopefully travel proof. Again, check the description for my 2 favorite drives. Let's talk about batteries. I always have an extra battery for every camera I own, but since upgrading to mirrorless, I now carry 4 batteries with me. It might be a bit excessive, but I like knowing that under no circumstance I will run out of power. I know this sounds basic, but I learned the hard way that you want to eliminate any extra stress or worry when you're at a shoot. Although alternative brand batteries are tempting, I would encourage you to never do this. Batteries are a quality item and it's important to make sure they won't leak or overcharge your camera. The price difference is simply not worth the risk. Let's talk about cards and card readers. The rule for cards is similar to the rule for batteries. You don't want to save on this one. It is best to get brand name reliable cards that are fast and well built because that's where your work gets saved. I also like to use my cards as storage space, so I like to have a lot of them and with a lot of space. That way I can keep shooting when I get new shoots and keep my shoots stored in the previous cards until I have time to do a second backup or I'm done processing the images and culling, and then I only need to do a backup of the final selection. I like to always have my photos in at least 2 separate places. That is my rule of thumb when it comes to storage. Tripods and monopods. My work has changed quite a bit in the last few years. When I used to do a lot of studio work, I had a sturdy Manfrotto tripod that I loved. But once I started doing a lot more travel work, I needed a tripod that was actually way more portable. And although you can't really get portable and sturdy, I tried to find something that was in between. For a while, I added a monopod to my tripod because they are a great option for anyone doing video as well. They're easier to move, they have also that sturdyability and that focus, but you can kind of like move forward and back and to the sides and gives you a little bit of a range of motion, which is great for a video. So it really depends on the kind of work that you're doing, but I'll give you on the list 3 tripod and monopod recommendations for what I like. Let's talk about little accessories, UV lens filters and reflectors. First of all, UV lens filters are so important. If you drop your lens or scratch it, better to do it on a $20 filter than a $2,000 lens. However, keep in mind that your image is as good as the last piece of glass it goes through. So make sure you don't cheapen your lens by covering the amazing glass with a cheap filter. It's important to invest in a good filter, but it doesn't have to be super expensive. Secondly, for any portrait or fashion photographer out there, your reflectors are a must. You can use it to bounce a flash off of it or just to fill light for a portrait. They're light, they're portable, and they're super versatile. You can get a 5-in-1 version and you can use it to create golden fill, silver fill, white fill, or even shadows. Some gear is hardware, but some gear is software. To get started as a pro, not everything you need is hardware. There are a few important software elements that you need in order to become a working photographer. I work a lot in video as well as photography, so I invested in a pretty loaded laptop. I have a MacBook Pro 15-inch from 2019, but I'll likely be upgrading to my M2 soon. In terms of editing software, there's obviously no surprises here. I work with Lightroom and Photoshop. I even have a full Lightroom masterclass to help people use this program to its maximum potential, because honestly, without Lightroom, I would have never started a photography business. I also use a program called JPEG Mini to compress all my files and maintain their integrity. This is great for uploading to Instagram and sometimes for delivering to clients as well. For image delivery, I use PixieSet, and you can do a lot with this free software online. And if I need to deliver higher resolution images or bigger files, I love to use Dropbox. For invoicing and accounting, I use waveapps.com. Let's talk about studio photography. As you evolve and choose your photography niche of choice and what you love doing, you might find yourself needing backdrops, stands, light, flashes, and modifiers. I wouldn't recommend anyone that is just starting out to invest in this, as studio rentals are a great way to get started with all of these extras and to play around and get to see what you like. Once you're a bit more advanced, a strobe or a flash can be a game changer in terms of the images you can produce. If you're getting there, drop me a comment and I'll be happy to give you some recommendations. A first studio setup at home can be as simple as a stand and a flash on it and an umbrella. I want to close off with something that is very important to remember. As your photography evolves, so will your equipment. New equipment is tempting and exciting. I was guilty of it myself when I started out, getting distracted with shiny objects and wanting to buy every single new thing, and thinking that my photography would only improve when I purchased whatever was the newest and most expensive equipment. But after years in business, I can tell you there is nothing I love more than owning just enough and nothing more. This is also going to make you a much more sustainable business in the long run. And as a traveler, moving around with extra equipment is frustrating and expensive. And long gone are the days where you needed big lenses and huge setups to do better photos or to impress clients. So I would suggest that you explore, you try, you play, but don't expect to spend a bunch of money and magically make your photography better. When it comes to equipment, wait until you need it. Try with what you have, and only when you're truly limiting your creativity and your skills with the equipment that you have that you know it's time to upgrade. If you like this video, as always, you can support me with a simple like, a comment, or a subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.